This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benneroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, or the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. I'm John Bailey. Jim Benneroff and Peter Katz are on assignment tonight. I'm joined this evening by Dennis Rudin, who hosts Profiles and Issues on Channel 75 and Channel 34 in Greenberg, and also you're on Saturdays and Sundays.
Here in White Plains, yeah, on your public access channel.
Right. Dennis, thanks for coming on in today to help us out.
Right. And Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m., just before the national news, so you could catch it. Right. And Saturdays in the evening around 6:30, check the local cable listing.
Okay, there we go. Now the headlines. County executive agrees to lease authorizing a $1.2 billion blockbuster biotech center on the North 60 property just north of Westchester Medical Center. We'll have video. Westchester single-family home sales continue lackluster in 2018. Prices slightly up. Mansion market sales continue to decline. White Plains hires new budget director. Acting budget director Eileen Earl continues on board. Mayor Roach and Common Council endorse televising citizens to be heard. City moves to create a computer database to monitor housing, overcrowding, and violations in the city. Proactive state politicians promote election reform in New York State. White Plains South Youth Bureau Director appointed chair of New York State Youth Bureaus. School district puts Board of Education agendas exclusively online, only on the weekends and only 48 hours in advance of the Board of Education meeting. The Trump shutdown of government effects in Westchester is analyzed. We'll give you a brief summary of how it's affecting us. And Democrats' darlings in the House denied slots on key committees by Democratic leadership. Don't understand that. And Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer ride into a box canyon. And right now, let's go to the North 60 decision. Dennis, tell us about that.
Well, there was breaking news yesterday. I understand this has taken 10 years to come about. It started in the Astorino administration. And by the way, the North 60 the full name is the Westchester Bioscience and Technology Center, which will be located in around Mount Pleasant area in Westchester County. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. The plan started with April 2017. It started the conception under the Astorino administration with Ferrari Associates. I may be mispronouncing it. If I am, correct me. To develop 60 acres of county land called the North 60 on the Grasslands Reservation near Westchester Medical Center and New York Medical College, plus 20 acres adjoining those sites. Yesterday, there was a news release that the current county executive, George Latimer, had signed the lease. And this is very important because it is a big operation, $1.28 billion, and there are many financial backers involved. So the signature on that lease stabilizes it. There is a situation that has to be worked out in that with this project, which I'll get into in a couple of minutes. But I want to focus right now on the details.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and right now let's go to our video of George Latimer.
Okay.
And
an initiative that would use 60 acres of land north of where the existing Westchester Medical Center is, as part of a public-private partnership with John Ferrari and his organization, and it's called the North 60. And the intent that John had, he responded to an RFP a number of years ago, was a successful respondent, and they were working to put together a plan to create a biotech center there, amount of square footage, I think potentially up to 2 million, although we'll see how we get up to 2 million, start where we start, in a multi-mixed retail, hotel use facility. The arrangements for that lease were approved by the Board of Legislators at the very end of 2017. When I came in 2018, we looked at the lease. There was a question as to whether or not there was going to be an emphasis on adding housing to that, and we went through a period of time where that was under discussion. That is no longer under discussion, so we went back to the original lease arrangements that John and his team, Neil DeLuca, the former deputy county executive, is a critical part of that team. And as we looked at it, we consulted with the Board of Legislators, met with representatives on both sides of the aisle in the Board of Legislators, the local legislator, Margaret Kunzio, to make sure that she and the town of Mount Pleasant were comfortable with us moving forward. And, you know, despite what you hear about Democrats in office and all this stuff, we are prepared today in front of you to sign our lease arrangements so that the North 60 can progress with Westchester County as a partner to the Ferrari organization. So I'm going to ask John Ferrari to join me here for the signing of the document. We looked at the contract. We wanted to be sure what we were doing was in the best interest of the county taxpayer. We are partners moving forward. There are other procedural steps that have to happen, town of Mount Pleasant, financing. There's a host of other things ahead of us, but we are now partners to see that this succeeds. And I might say, there's a risk. I learned this in my business life as well. There's a risk in everything. Things don't always turn out the way you plan. But if you don't take risk, you don't succeed. I'm sure you've learned that in your career, haven't you? If you don't take risk, you don't succeed. You take prudent risk. And in this particular case, the 60 acres that we have there, if this can be a biotech center, ultimately, that attracts people from around the area, just like the Gigabit Initiative of the County Association, people will look at Westchester County, and there's a lot to like in Fairfield, and there's a lot to like in North Jersey or the North Shore of Long Island, but they'll see Westchester as a central place. We're near a medical center and Regeneron and a medical college and a host of things that could make this work. So John, my best wishes for you as you go forward with this project. To you and Neil, good luck. Congratulations. We move forward together as partners. And I want to repeat something I said before because I think it bears repeating. Let me compliment Rob Astorino, my predecessor, and his team for advancing it to the point that it was advanced. We did not create this from ground zero. We inherited it. I talk about things that we've inherited that I wasn't so happy about, but it is also important in this society, if you're going to build lines across the aisles, you must credit people when they've done something right. This was not possible without the work of the Astorino administration as well. So please give them the recognition that they deserve.
okay, George Latimer giving you the nuts and bolts yesterday at the Westchester County Association. Now let's take a look at what we're looking at. And on the left, that is the site. And then on the upper right, that is a rendering of where it fits in on the site. And down below right is a design. And it's a really, you can see it's right alongside the Springbrook Parkway near the Westchester Medical Center. So what do we think of this?
It is, you know, I want to go into the details. The plan economically is going to be a big boom.
Yeah.
But not just in terms of people getting jobs. Okay, they project 8,000 permanent jobs it's going to bring. 4,000 construction jobs over the life of the deal. It's going to generate $7 million in rent paid to the county, $9 million in revenue in new taxes for local governments and schools. The developer, Ferrari, pays Westchester County, according to the terms in the lease, an annual rent of $125,000.
Which works out to $11.7 billion over 99 years.
Thank you. You're the statistician, not me.
That's a lot of jang.
Yes.
But is it enough?
Let me tell you also the significance, which is not in the numbers. We look at areas upstate. We look at certain areas in the South and in the West where at one time, where factories were, where jobs were plentiful, these geographical areas thrived. They're not thriving today because they could not keep attracting businesses to stay there. And as a result, and people have told me this, I've interviewed personal people, families, the children, if there's no future there, the children, they either go away to college or a vocational school. After that, they don't come back. They move to another part of the country. So for Westchester to maintain its high standards and its high quality of life, it needs to constantly improve its infrastructure. It needs to constantly improve its economic outlook.
Right, and this is going to start right away. The lease has been signed. The Ferrari organization will be paying the county monthly. Probably next month they'll receive their first payment. And they now have to start with about $250,000 of infrastructure, which is sewers and roads, which have to be designed if they haven't been already, but I don't know that. And not only that, but they say, their spokesperson, Thompson and Bender, said that it has been finance lined up, but he would not provide the details at this time as to what kind of financing is going to be handling this, or whom and how. And so that's a big question. But usually in these things, you get some sort of concrete detail, but none.
Well, you know, there's a lot of moving parts to this also.
Mount Pleasant has to get on the move.
Yeah, we can get into that.
Yeah.
But because it's such a large project, that's why I think they had to take it step by step. You know, you have to get financing on different levels. They still have to work out the component of housing near the site, because when you're going to have 8,000 permanent jobs and of all different economic levels, yes, the jobs at the top, people are going to be able to afford houses, but the level entry positions or the staff jobs, they may be comfortable middle income, but as you know, houses are very expensive in Westchester, so they're working on a component where people can afford to live near the site. The problem, why I found out why this was a stumbling block, is because when you have all this activity coming in to an area, it creates a lot of concentration in that area. So Mount Pleasant has to reevaluate its master plan, which for those people who are not familiar with the term means the rezoning. It affects the local school districts and the population, and they, you know, how are they going to cope with this? Regeneron, I think one of the pharmaceutical companies may want to use that facility. In other words, it's not even just that. They want this as a major hub to attract additional biotech companies in the area, additional, as we said, housing.
Yeah, Mr. Thompson, they said they were going to start with building the hotel, and then the lab, and then a small biotech center, but he also said it could take as long as 10 to 15 years before it's complete. That's a long time.
Well, that part I missed, but I'm glad that you got that.
Right.
220,000 square feet, and 100,000 for medical offices, 80,000 square feet for retail, you know, establishments in there.
And basically, we'll just have to see how this unfolds and how fast. Speed is of the essence. Now, moving to White Plains, we have a new budget director who will be starting January 4th, and here's what the mayor said about it.
Council President Martin. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to congratulate Mr. Arnett on the appointment tonight and welcome him. I had the opportunity to see his credentials, and I'm convinced he is qualified to do an excellent job for us. As we all know, he has very, very large shoes to fill. Because we've had outstanding professionals, and particularly Eileen Bradley, who I want to note led up our budget effort for very many years. I am confident he will be able to do that. It's a tricky time of year to be stepping in right now because obviously the process has been underway. It's actually an annual process, but I'm convinced he'll be able to do a great job. And again, I welcome and congratulate Mr. Arnett.
And let's note that Mr. Arnett is with us in the audience if you want to say hello. You know, the finance people don't get to be on television very often, so try and give them a chance. But it's actually, you know, it's a vital role, and he comes highly recommended. Service in county government in similar responsibilities. And I want to join Council President Martin in expressing my appreciation to Eileen Bradley. She was the budget director when I first came on the council, and when she was at the helm, you just felt very confident in everything you saw. She had a long view of the future of the city and the future of the economy, and it's largely to her hard work that we are in a good financial condition we're in today. So she's still going to be around, and she's going to help kind of effectively move forward with the transition. But it's worth saying thank you.
Is items 102A and 102B, which was added this evening. And this is a resolution of the Common Council of the City of White Plains amending Chapter 2-3 of the White Plains Municipal Code in relation to opportunities for individuals to be heard by the Common Council.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
It's my understanding that you will have a report on this. Would it be appropriate for us to table this resolution at this point?
I mean, that's what I would suggest. I mean, for people at home, this is Councilman Crowley asked that this resolution be prepared, and it was prepared, and the law department on relatively short notice. The idea is that we're going to start to televise the Citizens Be Heard portion of the meeting. And as I said at the work session, I have been working on it. I've been reaching out to everybody. I plan to circulate by the end of the week or early next week proposed guidelines or whatever protocols for it. And then at the next work session, we'll work on it and then hopefully have it on the next agenda for a vote. So.
And that was the second part of that video. Mayor Roach talking about the decision to televise Citizens to be Heard, which seems to be moving ahead. Citizens to be Heard has long been asked to be televised, and now this is going to come about. Now,
can I just mention, as a guest, I have to mention this, and we spoke about this the previous time I was here. There has been a decline in coverage of local issues in depth by media. And I want to thank you for the job that your show does, because years ago, even Channel 12 has stopped doing in-depth interviews and news, and so I think that your service is a vital
well, thank you very much.
service for
Thank you very
White
much.
Plains.
Yeah, I've got lunch. Okay, so moving ahead, housing numbers for 2018 came out, and they were not good. Here is the deal here on housing in Westchester, and home sales in Westchester County were down 4.6% from 2017, and while sales in Putnam County were up slightly by 3%. Locally, White Plains, Greenberg, and Valhalla home sales rose 4%, and the median price went up 5% to about $650,000. But the figures here are not very good for Westchester. Down 4.7 on single family, 1.7 down in condos, 2.2 down in co-ops, 6.1 down in 2 to 4 families, minus 3.9 overall. The median sales price up about 1.2%. So this is a doldrummy market. And not only that, but the luxury market is very soft too. According to Houlihan and Lawrence's over-luxury market, as they call it. Luxury markets north of New York City registered losses in 2018, and sales over 10 million peaked in Westchester County in 2018. However, these exceptional sales, Houlihan Lawrence says, did not make up for the overall decline. In Westchester, Darien, and New Canaan, luxury sales, 2 million and higher, declined by double digits in 2018. So if you've got the money, now is the time to snap up one of those mansion bargains, folks. Now, moving on to that, we have election reform. David Buchwald, some politicians had a demonstration saying that they were going to really push for election reform. He supports a series of things. Let's see. He will introduce legislation on campaign finance reform and regarding campaign contributions from vendors doing business with the state. He also will be taking a close look at the early voting. Now, moving along, there is a situation in Washington that took place this week. Government is not working. It's shut down, and this is affecting Westchester. Dennis, you have some information on how it's going to affect us.
Well, the data is still coming out, so I can't give you a complete report. Yeah. But obviously, when government agencies start to shut down, it affects not just Washington, but Westchester also. To give you an example, the beer industry here. So there's certain government agencies that have to regularly approve standards the way the beer is made. There was an article
this is a crisis.
Came about, and this will start to impact after this week when the checks don't come in. Also on environmental issues, the Long Island Sound, that's going to get dirtier because, again, these governmental agencies monitor, our environment, and they keep the water clean, and there's no one at the switch watching. Also, the quality of food. You have inspectors that come and inspect food, and in other types of industries, that's going to stop. And so you're going to have you're going to have chaos. You're going to have a decline, not only in services but in the quality of life. What I recommend to all citizens, what you do now, like you did in 2016, you get on your emails, you're on your computers or your cell phones, and you start calling your congressional representatives and they will, there are local citizens groups that are very well organized in the area. You can go on the internet and put down activist citizen groups, and you'll see a lot pop up. And they will also tell you what members of Congress are supporting the shutdown, so you can contact them and let them know how you feel.
That's a very good point. Your vote counts. You use it, as Bob Grant used to say, and your voice counts. And that is one thing in White Plains, New York, USA. The administration listens to citizens that call them and deal with the issues with them. Now, Mr. Trump is still standing firm on the wall, but not so firm. I mean, I was reading this morning in the Times that he says he could, you know, be a little more lenient on DACAs, the Dreamer kids, and also the persons who are already here. He actually said that, and it was quoted in the paper for it. Not only that, but he was also holding out the possibility he might fund the wall with disaster relief funds meant for like Texas, California, etc., which is unbelievable. Where, I guess those funds haven't been distributed yet? What's the story, you know?
Well, what I find unbelievable is the fact that the wall is not the first priority. The first priority is that government should be functioning fully. If we had a national security crisis, we would not be prepared.
You're lucky.
The national security agencies are not armed, and you know, he's supposed to be a pro-military president, so he says. And so basically, in order, like my mom used to say, if the foundation is not strong, the building will collapse. You cannot address these other issues until the government works. Secondly, with regard to his situation with the wall, the way Congress has always worked in history is to compromise. He wants the wall, then he's got to work with the Democrats on Dreamers or something. He just wants what he wants. There's no give and take.
No.
You have to have a give and take. And also, as we've seen with this president, doesn't mean, and I'm not talking about Democrat versus Republican, I'm talking about his style. If you give in to him, he'll say one thing one day, and then he'll call his media consultants, and they'll tell him, no, ask for more.
Right.
So then you have nothing but chaos.
Right. Now, one last note. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez didn't get a seat on the powerful text writing committee. They gave it to Tom Suozzi instead. They also did not give a seat to Representative Rashida Tlaib on the Appropriations Committee. Shame on the Democratic leadership for that. They rode these people, and now they're not giving them a seat at the table. And there's only 2 weeks to see the last of the Phantom at the Westchester BT. I hardly recommend this show. It's fantastic. And Dennis Rudin, thank you for sitting in for us today and dealing with the North 60. And John Bailey saying good night for Jim Beneroff and Peter Katz and for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.